Hey everyone, and welcome to the first Lobster Live session. For those who doesn't know me, I'm Patrick from marketing team, and I will keep this short because you are here to learn and not to listen to me. So, what is Lobster Live? It's a new monthly series where our TSM team will share practical platform knowledge in short, focused sessions. As we said in our announcement, 20 minutes hand-on demonstration, followed by 10 minutes questions. A couple of quick housekeeping rules. Feel free to drop your questions at any time in the chat or using Q&A option. We will collect them and answer as many as we can after demonstrations, after the demo. Those who we are not able to answer live will prepare the answers and show via email. The recording will be shared with everyone who registered for this session. That's enough from me. Let me hand over to Daniel Ogle, our TSM representative for this session, who will run the rest of the demonstration. Daniel, over to you.
All right, thank you very much. So, hello and welcome to the first edition of the TSM webinar series with the topic efficient profile chains. So let me shortly introduce myself and my team. So what does TSM mean? What does it stand for? It means Technical Success Manager, and a Technical Success Manager is your go-to technical partner who helps you get up and running with the Lobster Data Platform and grow your usage over time and make sure you're getting the real value out of the platform. All right, so let's directly jump into the topics. What's the problem? The problem are huge profiles. Yeah, maybe all of you know huge profiles doing a lot of different jobs at the same time. And the idea is to separate huge profiles in smaller parts. So we focus on a modular approach by splitting complex processes into smaller reusable building blocks. How can we do that in the Lobster Data Platform? We have different possibilities. We have, for example, in the phase 6, the possibility to trigger profiles, to call profiles, and also the same in the phase 3. And let me jump into the platform for you. So I prepared a few profiles. The first is the webinar CSV to JSON one. This profile is just converting a CSV into a JSON. And the idea is to send this JSON to the next profile, this one, and convert an XML out of it. Also, we have a profile which is reading in currencies from a web service and write the data into a database table with phase 4. And the first thing I want to show you is how to trigger a profile out of phase 6. So therefore, I will go into my first profile here in the phase 6 and create a new response channel. Right-click, response. And profiles can be chained up with the so-called message response. So in the response message content settings, you have to choose what do you want to pass. Do you want to trigger a profile, or do you want to pass data to another profile? In this case, I just want to trigger a profile, the profile with the web service that I just showed you, which is reading in the data from a web service and write it into a database table. And I want to trigger it from the first profile. So that's why I have to choose trigger profile. Only if you do that, you will see in the message settings profiles which have a time-driven input agent, a scheduled input agent. So in this case, the currencies web services 2DB profile. All right, and everything else will be filled out automatically. Then we have the message type here, synchronous. I will jump into that later. And we have also this part best practice at the end of the session. I will show you how to visualize profile chains, what is sync and async, what's the difference, and how to pass data between profiles. So data means in this case variables or maps. So that's it. I will just apply and save the profile. And let's check what's happening if I'm triggering the first profile with some data. Let me choose a file from the past, this one, start. And now let's go to the logs overview, and we see that the first profile triggered the other profile. There it is. So we have two profiles at all in one chain. You can also see that in the log down here. And if you right click on a job, you can also find follow-up jobs. So now you see in one view which jobs are bundled together. These two, for example. All right, that's how you trigger a profile out of phase 6. And now I want to call a profile, so pass data to this profile. The data I'm creating here, the JSON, should now be passed to this profile, and this profile is using it as a source. So what needs to be done? First of all, of the second profile, which will be called, it's really important that this profile is having in the phase 1 the event-based input agent message. All right, and if you choose these input agent, you can define a message queue name. I called it now webinar, so keep the names clear so you know later on what queue is doing what purpose. And if you did that, this profile is ready to be called from another one, so data can be passed to it. That's why I go to the phase 6 in the first profile once again. I delete this response channel I just showed you, and I will create another one, message. And now I can choose the content, which data should be passed. In this case, the output of the integration unit. So this is my JSON, and because it's a JSON, it will be UTF-8 encoded. And now I can choose only profiles, because now I selected data. I can choose now only profiles which are having the input agent message. So the second one. That's it. I will save the data, save the response channel. And now let's see what is happening when I call this profile once again. Start. Let's go back to the overview, refresh. And now you see job 873 is calling now the other profile and passing the data to this 02 webinar JSON to XML. So let's double check it. The output file of this profile is the JSON, all right? And if we double click this job, you see the JSON is now the source file of this job. That means this is a profile chain where data is passed through the message input agent or the message protocol internally. All right, so that's the difference. That's the difference. That's how you can call or trigger a profile out of phase 6. And the next thing is I want to show you how to do that in phase 3 in the mapping. So let's go back to my profile in phase 3. We have in the target side, I have this init node I will use later on, but first of all, I want to show you the functions. So you have a function trigger profile. This function in the parameter A, you can right click and select a profile. Same behavior like in the phase 6. Sync or async, that's the only thing you can configure here. And the other thing is the call profile function. And you can, of course, choose the profile name, first of all, sync or async. And the difference is that in here you can now pass data to this other profile. That means you can create a JSON object or an XML object directly in here in the phase 3 with functions, for example, create JSON from node. With this function, you can create a JSON object, pass it to the next profile, or XML. You can create an XML object, pass it to the next profile. Up to you. So now you can directly do that in the phase 3, and you don't have to wait till the profile ends and trigger it at the end of the job. All right, so this is the option you have in phase 3, and now I want to show you a special nice feature. It's called call subprofile for source tree. What's the idea? The idea is that I now can integrate another profile's target tree into this profile source structure. So I open this profile here, the one which is writing into the database table. And we see we have two structures. We have the rates, and on the right side, we have the database structure with an ID, timestamp, and so on. So let's go back to this profile. And now I want to include the target tree of the profile I just showed you to the source structure in here. How to do that? I will create a field for that in my init node. And now on the field or on the node on the target side, you can do a right click and add a profile as a subnode in source tree. With this option, if you click on that, a new window will pop up, and now you can choose, first of all, the profile, this one. I want to add this profile here. And you have to choose a unique prefix and node name, because you can add more than one profile, of course, in this source structure, not only one. So I will call the node prefix currencies and the node sub profile. And if I press now add, you will see on the left side, we have a new structure, included sub profiles. And now what you see here is the target tree of the profile I just embedded. You remember? Let's go back to it. This is the target tree. And now I have it on the source side. So that means as soon as this field is entered, the profile is triggered, will do his magic and fill the whole source structure here. And what you also see here on this field is now he placed a function called subprofile for source tree with a few parameters. And one of the most important parameters are parameter DEF, because as soon as this profile is triggered, it will also execute phase 4, 5, and 6. So it will write data into a database table, it will create a target file, it will send the data out to whoever. So normally you don't want that execution. That's why we have the parameter DEF to skip phase 4, 5, and 6. In this case, my profile shouldn't write into a database table. That's why I want to skip the phase 4. I just want the target tree in this scenario. That's why I set the parameter here true. And don't forget that. Now I can test the mapping. What's happening? This function is returning if it was successful or not. All right. And if I fill the source tree, I don't see that structure under the blue node. All right, it's excluded. But you will find it in this special area in the profile test dialog, subprofile calls. And here you see what is placed on that substructure internally for debugging purposes. You see now we have all the currencies, all the rates, and so on. So we can use that source structure now as a normal node, as you already know how to work on them. Yeah, you can set a path, you can map fields, whatever, and let's do it. I have a source structure here in the header. Let's place some test data on it. So we have the currency here, US dollar, and I need now the currency rate for that currency up there. That's why I will create a new substructure here. Get currency rate. Set currency rate. Now we can do an iteration. So set a path and map this field here. And if we do a mapping test, you see now all the currencies on the target side, because we're iterating through all of them. And now I need a condition on this node, only enter when the currency is matching A equals B. So only enter when this currency equals that currency. And now you see it's only entered once when the currency is matching. And now you can use that value in your target tree. You can copy it from the top to the bottom, do whatever you want. And that's how you include profiles in your main profile as a sub profile, by using this functionality here. All right, then next part, best practice. Let me save that profile and let me run it. So now I have these three profiles chained up together. I included this profile in the phase 3 of that one, and the second profile will be triggered in phase 6 still in that one. So let me check how this looks like in our log if we run a job. You see the number 1, first one, and this is the profile call out of the profile with the source tree functionality, and then the second one. So as I already showed you, you can right-click a profile and find follow-up jobs. Then they're bundled together. It's also possible to click on a job with the right click and search profile chain and data flow. And then you have a visualization. This is the first profile. Then you see this is a function call. Function is calling that one. Then the second response channel in the profile is a message call to this one, and so on. Okay, that's a little visualization. You can also export it in a PDF, whatever, for your documentation. What else do we provide? It's also possible, if you go to your profile overview, to right-click on a profile and use our new feature, the process map. Now you see how all the profiles are chained up together at all. And this could grow as much as you want. You can chain them up together. You can call them synchronous and asynchronous. That's the next thing I want to show you. What is the difference? You saw all the time I have the possibility to set it to sync or async in the message settings here. What does it mean? Synchronous means that this profile is waiting for the response of the other profile, which you are triggering or calling. All right, so if the second profile is running on error, your main profile will run on error as well. If you choose asynchronous, then the profile is sending the data or triggering the profile and doesn't keep care about the result of the other profile. It just do his execution without waiting of the other profile. And what's also important is in high availability setups of the Lobster Data Platform. Keep in mind that if you are running profile chains synchronous, the execution will be done on the working node. All right, the traffic will not be routed to the working nodes. So that's also an important thing to keep care about. So if you are on a HR setup, use asynchronous message calls to put the working load on the working nodes, not on the node controller. All right, so that's the difference between sync and async. And now, last part is pass data between profiles. How can I pass one information to another profile in a chain? Also, when you trigger another profile, you already saw how to pass a whole payload to another profile, a whole document, but it's also possible to pass single informations like variables or also maps to another profile. So if you want to pass a variable, you can define the variable here, give it a name. And this variable can be accessed with the message call prefix in the other profile. I will show you in a minute. Also, it's possible to pass whole maps. So I will fill a map for this scenario. So as you know, a map is having a key and a value. So first of all, let's iterate and set the currency as a key and the rate as a value. And the map of the name of the map is now really important. I can call it map currencies, but that's common. I can add out to serialize as a prefix to the map name, and the magic will happen afterwards when we run the mapping. So first of all, we see that the map is filled for the currencies and the rates. That's fine. But because I add this prefix auto serialize, it's directly serialized, and any other profile in a profile chain can access this map without doing anything. You just can read out of it with any special functions or anything else. So let's try that out. Let's go to the second profile, phase 3. And I can dump the content of the map with a function called dump map. This one, name of the map, how to serialize, true for the logging, and true to dump the information in the log area on the job. Save it, and let's try it once again. Saved, all right. So my profile chain, as we saw it before, and now in the additional info of the second profile, where I put the dump of the map into the additional info, you see now the auto serialize map directly read out with all the information I set in the first one. And that's how you pass data between profiles. Concerning the variable, you can check the metadata of a job, and you see there is some information already passed with the message call. So if you want to read out a variable from a previous profile, just define the variable with the same name and the prefix message call. And that's how you pass data between profiles. All right, so that's it from my side. And now we can head over to a Q&A session.
Thanks, Daniel. In the meantime, guys, before we start answering questions, I will pass the link to the survey to get your feedback. It will be great if you can, after the session, give us your input. We'll also send the link to the survey in the email later today with the recording. So let's go to the questions. I will start from the one which were asked earliest. We can add this one. How to manage errors in a subsequent profiles in the main profile. Do you have any insight on this topic, please?
How to manage errors in the subsequent profile in the main profile. Yes. So in the profile chain, you can, let me go to the first profile once again. You have the possibility to use in the error handling sections a profile on error, which can be triggered on an error and also having the past variables you filled out in this profile. So if there's an error in a phase 3, for example, this profile will be triggered and is having all the information from the main profile, and then you can handle on that.
Great.
Answers your question.
Next question. What is the benefit of using multiple context queues instead of single one for all my profile chains?
If you imagine you have a lot of different profile chains and they're all running in one queue. So you define the queue in the phase 1 here. This is the message queue. Then everything will be handled in one context and one thread. So if you put them in different message queues for different topics, then the load will be more balanced and also faster.
Thanks, Daniel. Next question. Can we share lists over profiles too?
Yes, you can also share lists by adding auto serialize _ before the list name. So this is working for lists and maps.
Great. Next question. Which is more technically efficient, triggering a profile in phase 3 or in phase 6, which puts less strain on the system?
It depends on your use case, and also depends on the other profile and if you call it synchronous or asynchronous. But the runtime will be the same in the phase 3 or in the phase 6 because the runtime is based on the profile you are triggering. An additional thing is in a synchronous context, it's more efficient because we are not creating a new data object. Okay, so that's something to add. Sorry.
No worries. Good. Another question is about calling asynchronous way profile 2. We do not want to vote for the result, but want to know only if profile 2 started successfully.
If it's not started successfully, you will get an error in the logs overview. This can happen, for example, if the profile is inactive, then the Lobster Data Platform will not find the profile.
Great. It's a bit longer question for option 3. call profiles as subnode on source tree. Practical situation I had to face are, again, how to manage error, meaning can we, sorry, I have to, how to manage errors, meaning can we get the error message in case subprofile call failed? How to cache data in case of a loop with multiple calls to the same profile? What are the options to cache the results based on the input data? It's a bit long question. I will try to show it again so you can scan it.
How to cache data in case of a loop with multiple calls to the same. Okay, first of all, it's a good point. Keep care about loops. With this profile chains, you can call the own profile, for example, once again, and then you will create an endless loop. That's dangerous, and that's possible. So hopefully you keep care about that. Otherwise, it will maybe crash your system if you configure it wrong. And if you are in a loop calling another profile, for example, for the source tree, let's go back to my profile number 1. Then you also, if you do this in a loop here, call subprofile, then the subprofile can store errors or catching errors in a variable called var sys error, and this variable will also be passed to the main profile. Or you can, if you define your own errors, you can store them in the map, for example, and use the map from the auto serialize in this loop, and then it will be overwritten for each and every run. So that's one possibility.
Okay, let's go for this one. Why are subprofile treated differently during testing rather than being included in the show source tree? Surely having visibility in the source is the goal.
Can you do it once again, please?
Yeah. Let me bring it back. Sorry. Yeah.
Why are subprofiles treated differently during the testing rather than being included in the show source? Yes, that's a thing we have to optimize. That's true. Yeah, I also would be happier if we directly have it in the source structure here in the test mapping. But at the moment, it's implemented like that. And yeah, maybe there will be some optimizations in the future. But yeah, for debugging purposes, you have to use that one right now.
Yeah, another a bit longer questions. We are quite heavily using profile chaining already, but we still have issues with HTTP input agents returning responses. In case there is only profile chains, everything works, but how is it on HTTP output? If we have a successful error handling profile defined there, how to pass back the responses from profile chains in that case? We are only found working solutions via creating temp files, which feels clumsy.
Okay, one moment. Data response from my chain. All right. So first of all, if you're having a profile chain where the input agent, okay, I know in your question it's the output agent, but if you have an input agent with HTTP and you have a profile chain, then there is a little graphic for that, how this is working. I will show that to you. Profile chains. Then the data will be passed in the chain. So you have the HTTP input agent, then you have the custom response class, then you call another profile, and then the response can be passed to the first profile, only if the input agent is HTTP. If you have another profile chain without input agent HTTP, at the moment, I don't think there is a better solution as that what you said, but I can dive into that later, deeper, and get back to you with an answer, okay?
Yeah, let's see if we can answer some more questions. Is it possible to rerun a subprofile in a way it is also uses the variable values got by MSCG call?
No, because this variable is filled from the first profile, so it doesn't have any context if you start the profile chain somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
It's possible to do it in a mapping test. So shortly, let me show it to you. So if you use a file from the backups, you can right-click on that and copy the test file with including the metadata. That means the metadata are also the informations from the message call. So then it will be passed to this profile, but you cannot do that in the rerun of a profile in the overview, for example.
Why are subprofiles treated differently during testing rather? Oh, sorry, this we already answered. My bad. This one is a short one. We can still answer. How did you achieve in the logs to show the additional info with the serialized map?
So the additional info field here will be filled automatically by using the parameter. So I use the dump map functionality here, and the dump map function is having the parameter C. So I will show it to you in the help. The parameter C means if true, the dump is performed into the additional info tab instead of the normal job log. And that's how you can display it there.
Great. I think this is all we had time for the live sessions. Like I said, we will still take all your questions, which are now posted in the chat and Q&A, and answer them separately offline and share the answers with you. You can also reach out to Daniel or anyone from our support team if there is any additional questions. The recording from this session will be shared with all of you later today. Hope you enjoyed the session, and remember the next sessions is on 12 June when we'll be talking about API Manager. Daniel, thanks a lot.
Thank you for attending. Bye-bye.